A junior autistic person is first a junior. So we have to train them, to learn them how it works in the work environment, what are the codes. 20% of the population is already neurodivergent. All managers should have training in how to manage neurodivergent people. If you don't do that, you're not able to manage 20% of your team. Look, it works for Branson, so it will work for everyone.
Welcome to the Metautism podcast, where we're diving into the vibrant world of autism and championing inclusive education and employment. Join us as we explore innovative strategies, share inspiring stories, and analyze groundbreaking initiatives that celebrate differences and advocate for a future of equal opportunities. Let's get started. Hello. How are you? Welcome to another episode of Metautism podcast. I'm your host, Clara, and I'm super excited that I'm speaking with Dorna Hafezi today, and she is CEO of Auticon France. Auticon is the world's largest autistic-majority company, and they employ almost 600 employees in 15 countries across 3 continents. To be more precise, almost 80% of their employees are adults on the autism spectrum, and they are also the first consultants in the world to employ exclusively adults on the autism spectrum as their tech consultants who get integrated into clients' organizations as software developers, QA engineers, data analysts, and so on. And Dorna, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Clara. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to talk about Auticon and autism and employment and subjects that are really important at our hearts and minds. You told that there's really a case and a subject about autistic people, or, the creation of Auticon was historically by parents which saw their children and the friend of their children being unemployed while qualify. And if we talk about the figures, 88% of the people that we hire are qualified. However, 64% of them were unemployed when they were recruited by Auticon globally in the 15 countries. And 55% of those people were unemployed for more than 1 year. So unemployment is really a subject, and Auticon wants to address it in a sustainable way, not only working with autistic people, but also at 3 levels. So individuals, to help them access to the labor market, at the organizations level with the companies, to enable them to welcome autistic people and more generally neurodivergent people, and at the society level to really bring neurodivergence as a subject which one day won't really be a subject, because it will be commonly accepted that people are neurodiverse, and we put in place, at the society level, what it takes and the right way of working together and living together to make everyone comfortable in the society, in the company, and as an individual. In terms of some statistic, in terms of individuals, 73% are consultant. They feel more confident when they come and work with us, because that employment is really one of the source of well-being in life. So it's really important for people, be they autistic or not. And in terms of organization, we see real change in the organization, and the teams work with our people. 81% of the managers and people working with our consultants feel more confident about autism and working with autistic people. 71%, they see really important cultural impact that benefits to everyone. Really a transformation in the way people work together, behave together, communicate together. And 71% is really important. They see really that cultural change. And 96% of our clients, and it's an important figure, see real contribution of autistic people to the team. When organizations, manager, and team begin working with our consultants, even though at the beginning they don't know autism and they may be some fear, with time, after a few months, they see really a benefit, not only for the autistic person, but also for them, for their team and their company culture.
I mentioned in the beginning that your employees are integrated into clients' organizations. So you already mentioned some transformation and numbers that you can share with us, but also I want to know, what does that integration process look like?
You know, when we hire our consultant, some of them are experienced with diverse experience. We have hired, for example, an engineer who didn't find a job and who was bread delivery for people. You know, they do some other small jobs. So some are experienced, but most of them are junior. And usually, I used to say that a junior autistic person is first a junior. So we have to train them, to learn them how it works in the work environment, what are the codes. It begins by training the person who is joining the organization about how the work will look like. And very quickly, we put them in the work environment, and it begins by also training our clients' team about what's neurodivergence. You know that 20% of people around the world, around 20%, are neurodivergent. So it's a subject really that companies should look at very closely. And this training that we provide them, the aim is to help them welcome the consultant in the team, but also to have a first understanding of what's autism and what's neurodivergence. And usually we see that with those training, people say, oh yes, they come and they talk about their own needs and their own neurodivergence or their own condition. So once this training is done, we work also with the client to put in place the, if there is some conditions, I don't know, physical for the workplace, for the consultant, you know, being some days on site, some days distance, you know, all the work condition that the consultant needs. And it doesn't stop there. We continue working with the consultant and the client to make the communication fluid, to learn to the consultant how the workplace works really and what's expected from him, and to decode the interactions and what he sees, and to explain to him how those interactions work. And we see that after a while, after a few weeks, months, depending on the person is more confident and they can themselves find the solutions and they are better integrated in the workplace. We used to hire, for example, a consultant which was nonverbal. When he arrived, he had the qualification, but he was lots of stress and nonverbal. And with the client and the manager, we saw his evolution. You know, he began talking, and we discovered after a few months that he is even very funny and he's a really good colleague and friend. But when he arrived, he was nonverbal. He didn't talk.
Most of your employees actually are between 2 to 5 years in the company. So that also says a lot on how much they enjoy the job. For example, the first guest on this podcast was Ziva, who has son on the autism spectrum, who is 9 years old. And she says that his behavior completely changes, and she sees such a positive progress and change when he goes to school, when he is working towards something every day, while for example there are much more undesired behaviors when he's on holidays. So I can see the parallels through whether someone is 9 or 29 years old.
Yes, of course. And I believe that our experienced consultants are really key and are really assets to our company, to Auticon. And they help us build also the future of Auticon, the future of other autistic people. They are able to also manage or help more junior person and creating really a workplace where more experienced people learn from juniors. The aim of the company is really to help autistic people achieve the higher level they want to achieve, meaning that for a long time they have been employed in lower level jobs because they didn't have the code, or the company and the society didn't have the code of working together. And our aim is really to help them go to the level that they deserve and desire.
Could you maybe go into a bit more detail on how economy as a whole, how does society benefit from employing everyone who can work?
The first word that comes to our mind is innovation, because neurodivergent people bring other kind of thinking, because neurodivergent people bring that innovation and that other way of looking at subject thinking to the workplace. We used to say that they bring innovation. More specifically, autistic people, in addition to innovation, they bring logical thinking. They say things in the workplace, without playing politics. They are focused on techniques and technical subjects. And pattern recognition is also one of the autistic forces that we have seen on people that we employ, that is really being used in the job, and that brings innovation to companies. So there are forces of neurodivergence that brings the real value to the companies. And I gave the number of 96% of our clients that see a real impact in terms of contribution from our consultants to the team. And what we hope is that this collaboration with us will motivate them to hire more neurodivergent people, and not only hire them, but to be able to manage them, to promote them, and to learn to managers how to manage neurodivergent people.
Yes, and that is excellent point. Could you maybe go into a bit more detail on how can companies make sure there's an equitable career development for neurodivergent people?
First of all, it begins with the management of the company, having a top-down approach of putting neurodivergence in the agenda of the company, and learning managers to manage neurodivergent people. I talk with other managers in the companies, and I give the example of someone with ADHD, and I ask them how many times you had maybe people with ADHD in your team and you weren't able to know how people is working, what's his need and how to manage. And 90% of the time people say, yes, I had people with ADHD in my team, and I didn't know how to manage that people. It's really common, very usual in the workplace. So the first thing is really to giving the key to first line managers, to directors, to know how to manage those people. It helps them because 20% of the population is already neurodivergent. In the organization, statistically, you have 20% of people neurodivergent. So giving the key to managers is the first step. And by doing that, the organization can put in place a dynamic of people and career management where they put people where they feel they can bring the best value, where they are the best of their competency, and not only their know-how, but also what they like to do, what they want to do, and where they bring value. And by doing this, you will have an organization which is inclusive and where people feel very comfortable being there in their place, and willing to go beyond and to progress in their career.
You worked as regional director, as sales director, key account manager at big companies like IBM, Accenture, Orange, and so on. And if you could bring something from Auticon and Auticon France, some knowledge, what would you bring to them?
Before joining Auticon, I didn't know anything about, neurodivergence and neurodivergent people. Maybe I have heard about ADHD, dyslexia or dyspraxia. You always have someone in your classroom or your children's classroom who is with dyslexia or other neurodivergent condition, but you don't really know what it is and how to manage that. And even you don't know to identify the signs of maybe someone has that kind of reactions because they think differently, they act differently. And I think that if I have to take only one learning from this Auticon experience and advise myself years ago, is that all managers should have training in how to manage neurodivergent people. Everyone beginning a management job should be trained on that, because if you don't do that, you are not an effective manager and you are not able to manage 20% of your team, which is a big part of the team. And when you don't know how to manage that 20%, it impacts in all of the team, because it impacts the culture of the team, the culture of the organization that you are managing. And being aware of that and being able to help people, to guide them, to manage them is really key for all management.
Also, how important is your mission is proven also by Richard Branson, from Virgin, who of course supports Auticon, but he himself is dyslexic, which brought him, I guess, many challenges in the beginning of his career. So, did you have any contact with him?
Richard Branson, we are really proud and happy because he's supporting Auticon since the beginning, and he's advocating Auticon. And we usually, talk to clients, and you said what our challenge is to also show the clients that we can be neurodivergent and be successful. And Richard Branson is really the best advocate and the best example for us that reassures the client that, look, it works for Richard Branson, so it will work for everyone. Not everyone will look like him. Not everyone will be Richard Branson, but if it works for him, it works for people in other positions. The key is really to find where the person will be best, at the best of his competency, and what his contribution to the company and to the society in general.
As the last point, what I found very impressive is Auticon's yearly impact report, and there are such an amazing stats and data and questions and so on. And you already brought many points that I read in that report, which are very, very important. But is there anything else that maybe I missed to ask, or you would like to bring up?
The key is really to address the unemployment at the autistic people. And maybe one important point is, why are we talking a lot about autism and not neurodivergence? It's because of that unemployment situation. When you see the neurodivergent, you take the neurodivergent people, unemployment is high, but it's even higher at autistic people. You can always mask when you are ADHD or you have this trouble or other condition, but it's a real challenge for autistic people. And this is not the end of the story. This is only the beginning of the story, because then when you're hired, then comes how you manage that person, how you promote them. This is why this is a real complete story about autism and unemployment, but then it extends to, okay, now people are in the company, how we manage them and how we develop them. So we have to globally address all those situations, all those challenges. And the first thing is really unemployment to address. And I will give you some figures. More than 70% of the people with autism are unemployed. And I'm living in France. The situation is even worse here. It's more than 90% of the autistic people who are unemployed or underemployed. So this stays also a challenge. And hopefully we will be able to address that all together with the neurodivergence management and promotion and integration challenge.
I truly hope so, and I believe everything will be better as the time goes on. Unfortunately, it does take time, it takes effort, but it's crucial, it's necessary. And I think this was fabulous conclusion. So Dorna, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Clara, for inviting and letting me talk about this really interesting and important challenge and subject.
Sure, I believe we could talk about it all day. And lastly, thank you also to the Erasmus Plus program of European Union for funding this project. All opinions are our own. Please follow or subscribe on YouTube and Spotify and other listening platforms wherever you listen to your podcasts so you don't miss upcoming episodes. Until the next time, see you on social media and bye-bye!